TV sports football was a bit of a conundrum for me. I focus on the Japanese side of things because the nitty-gritty details of what was happening on consoles in Japan doesn't get discussed a lot in the English-speaking world. But on the PC Engine, I've been including TurboGrafx games because the only difference between the two platforms was the pin order on the card slot. I'm also talking about games chronologically. I do that to put everything into context. You can see how the platform develops, trends that were occurring, how game development was reacting to previously released games. So with that in mind, what do I do when the TurboGrafx gets a game before the PC Engine? Do I use the Japanese release date or the American release date? I chose to stick with when it was first available, which for the TurboGrafx port of TV Sports Football would have been sometime in December of 1990. But I'm sticking with my convention of using the PC Engine version unless an international release makes the video more understandable. In the case of TV Sports Football, the team names and the announcer that cuts in occasionally have been translated to Japanese, and otherwise it's identical, so I'll be using my PC Engine version. There's another good reason to keep this game in its place though, and that's because the TurboGrafx and PC Engine played a big role in the story of its developer, Cinemaware. Cinemaware were one of the biggest names in computer games in the late 80s. Their premier game, Defender of the Crown, was one of those games that people would pull out and show off to demonstrate just how powerful their shiny new computer was. Cinemaware, as their name suggests, focused on making their games a cinematic experience. They featured high-end graphics and presentation, and looked great. And personally, I hate their games because they play like garbage. That's not a recent thing either. Even back in the 1980s, I was already dissecting gameplay to figure out what worked. Cinemaware's approach to the game design part of video games was to make a bunch of minigames that could show off their graphics skills. Who cared if the controls were barely functional? The minigames had the depth of a plate left out in the rainstorm, and things weren't really functional. Had you seen how pretty the game looked? Setting that aside, Cinemaware as a company had bigger problems than young me pointing out that this emperor had no clothes. Their games were enormously expensive to produce, and the sales weren't able to justify it. By 1990, they were pretty deep in debt, and they had to sell off partial ownership in the company. But who would buy them? Perhaps someone who had a CD-ROM platform that was looking for people to provide content for it. In early 1990, NEC purchased a significant portion of Cinemaware. Not a controlling interest, but enough to push the company in particular directions. In 1991, Cinemaware went out of business. I'll get back to the Cinemaware NEC story in about 6 months, because right now, TV Sports Football is the beginning of it. The TV sports line were the bright spot in Cinemaware's financials. Relatively inexpensive to produce, and fairly successful. The first computer version of it came out in 1988, and while it contained some Cinemaware flourishes, the action on the field was a significant step up from any other football video game to that point. It's fair to say that TV Sports Football was pretty influential on the football games that would follow it. It made the perfect first NEC project for Cinemaware. It was one of their more popular games, and it filled in a niche that the TurboGrafx was lacking. How are you going to sell a console in the United States without a football game? TV Sports Football offers the usual options of an exhibition match or a full season of games. You can also take a look at the league's calendar and check out the stats for all of the players on a team. Players are rated on speed, strength, handling, and agility. And I hope you remember who the good player on your team is, because there's no way to check this information in-game or to identify who the player on the field is. The way that plays work during the game is that you're first given a choice of 4 formations. You select which one you'll use by pushing in a direction. Then you're given a choice of 4 patterns. That gives you a pretty good selection of plays, although the last option is for more specialized things like punting or setting up a goal line defense. You're always controlling just one player at a time on the field, and who you're controlling will be blinking. Regardless of which teams you select, they are always wearing red and blue uniforms. And it's not like the teams are even consistent about which color uniform they're wearing. When you're on defense, the controls are easy. You just move your guy around and can hit button 1 to leap at something. The controls for an offensive play are kind of complicated. Even before the snap, you have to make some options. If you hit button 2, then you'll automatically do the running version of the play. If you hit button 1, you'll automatically do the passing version of the play. And if you hit down on the D-pad, then you get control over the quarterback. You can seize control of a player at any point during an automatic play, just by pushing in any direction on the D-pad. If you want to pass the ball yourself, and I strongly recommend that you do this since the computer seems to be really bad at it, then there's some added complications. When the quarterback has the ball and is not moving, then their arm will extend out. This is showing you where they're aiming the throw. When in this position, you can hold left and right to shift your aim. You can't do this while the quarterback is moving, and if you wanted to start moving again, you need to press up or down. Once you're aiming in the right direction, you press and hold button 1 to start the throw. The ball will continue upward as long as you're holding down button 1. And there will be a little crosshair on the ground that's stretching out to show you where the ball will land. Release button 1 and the ball starts coming back down, and anybody who's in position where they might be able to catch it will run over. Even if you're not in direct control of the receiver, you can press button 1 to make them do a diving catch. All of that is really complicated, and so they included a practice mode from the main menu. In practice mode, you are only playing offense, and there's very little in the way of defensive players. Just a few linebackers getting in your way. It also won't walk you through what you're supposed to do here. It's just you've got a lot more latitude for figuring things out before you get into a real game. In those games, the clock runs at real time, so 15 minutes per quarter. You can call a timeout by pressing button 2 during the play selection, but this game's already taking a long time. I don't know why you'd want to extend it further. There's no options to make the quarters go faster, so playing a game takes quite a while. Now, as you might expect, TV sports football was not popular in Japan. This is another one of those cases where it's very likely that this will be the internet's most watched video on the PC Engine version of TV sports football. I found 2 people who had anything to say about the game at all. One of them thought Tecmo Bowl was better, and the other had some fondness for it. In my view, TV sports football is a bit clunky, but it does offer a more realistic experience than any other football game on a video game console at that point. Other games tended to lean into the action, while TV sports offered a little bit more strategy. I think that TV sports football was a pretty good football video game for its day. But also, like most sports games of this era, you'd probably have more fun playing the games that took inspiration from it than the original one.